Good morning. My name is Steve Strauss, and I am president of a company called Developmental Associates. We've worked with some of you all in the past with regard to, and this year, with regard to your promotional process. And we were delighted to have the opportunity to work with you and work with the department on hiring, helping in the process for hiring a new chief. We're very excited about the candidates we're going to present to you all today. And let me just tell you what we're going to do, what our agenda is going to be. The first thing I want to do is make sure that you all understand the process by which these two gentlemen have ended up here tonight, because it's been a very demanding and rigorous process, and we want you to understand that. And so I'll walk you through each of those steps. Then I'm going to begin by introducing each of the candidates. I'm going to start with Chris Langum, and then I'll introduce Trey Mayo. And after I introduce each one of them, I'm going to ask them to make a presentation to you for up to about 10 minutes to talk with you about who they are and how they would work with you as chief. And then after we finish that, we're going to open up the floor to questions. And I'll explain the process for asking questions, but just to give you a heads up, you can ask questions in one of two ways. You can either come up here to the microphone and ask your question, or you can write your question down. And where do we have a location for that, Derek? Okay, I'm sorry, I couldn't see it. There's a back table there, and it's at a key point. Once the questions have begun, I'll go back there and see if any of you all have written any questions. And if you would, just put them back there, fold them in half, and I'll collect them, and we'll include those as well. So if you prefer not to come up to the microphone and would like to instead just write out a question, we'll be glad to include that as well. So again, let me begin by talking a little bit about the process for this position. We began by holding sessions with personnel in the fire department and trying to get a good understanding of the challenges facing the department. We met with, if I'm not mistaken, over 60 people in the department in one day to try to get their input about the fire chief's position. We also met with the city manager's office and department heads. And based on that, we developed an ad. We posted it in a variety of locations. We actively recruited a number of candidates. We recruited 82 candidates for this position. They were literally from all over the country. And the candidates then went through an initial screening process. We narrowed that number down to about 15. Then we conducted a secondary screen. Secondary screen included a telephone interview conducted by one of our staff, Tom Moss. We also had the candidates complete a psychological inventory called the Emotional Intelligence Inventory. It's an inventory that's validated for employment purposes. We had one of the psychologists on our staff administer that instrument. Third thing that we did is we had all the candidates complete essay questions on an electronic system to find out what they've accomplished during their careers. And the fourth thing we did is we conducted a Google search to find out what sort of information is out there in the public domain about each of the candidates. Based on that information, we narrowed the number of candidates down to 6 who were invited to an assessment center here in Winston-Salem. One of the candidates dropped out of the process due to some personal reasons, so we ended up having 5 candidates who went through the process. They went through 4 different exercises. One of those was a written exercise where they developed a plan for a couple of key issues facing the department. One is how they would deal with the demand on fire officers throughout the department, particularly since the department is dealing with emergency rescue as well as building inspections. We also asked them about what they might do to deal with the ISO rating, the upcoming rating of the department, and how they might manage that process, and what they could do to try to sustain the ISO rating of the city. They also had a meeting exercise, actually maybe a little similar to this one today, where people were raising questions, firefighters were raising questions and concerns, and we were seeing how the candidates could respond to those concerns that they might raise. We had a staff meeting in which they met with a group 3 people who were acting as assistant fire chiefs who are raising concerns and issues regarding human resource management within the department. And last of all, we had a one-on-one role play where they were interacting with someone who was acting as a fictional assistant chief to assess their supervisory skills. Both these gentlemen fared very well in the process. They clearly demonstrated that they have a high level of competency, and I hope you could appreciate how thorough and demanding the process was, and which shows you, A, how committed they are to this position, but also how competent they are to reach this point. So let me talk just a little bit about our first speaker, who will be someone who's familiar to all of you, Chris Langum. Let me just tell you just a little bit about his background. First of all, Chris has been working in the department since 1997. He's been in positions such as, most recently as battalion chief, was also an assistant chief. Chris has, excuse me just one second, has his education is that he has a bachelor's degree, which he obtained from John Wesley College. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading my own notes here, just one second. Which we received from John Wesley College, and he also has a master's degree from Jacksonville State University. He's also a graduate of the National Fire Academy. I've known Chris for a number of years. He's, as all of you know, he's very dedicated to the department, we're very pleased that he's one of the final two candidates. So, Chris, would you like to say a few words?
Tell Dr. Strauss taller than I am. Thank you, Dr. Strauss. This has been a very challenging process that we went through, to say the least. It's been exciting, it's been fun, and I'm very excited to be here. How cool is this? Is this not awesome? This is unprecedented in the Winston-Salem Fire Department, that the firefighters get an opportunity to participate in a question and answer session. And I applaud the city manager to taking it to the next level and getting input from firefighters. We've seen this type of format happen with the police department, but the best I can tell in the history of the Winston-Salem Fire Department, this is the first time that the firefighters have been directly involved in the process. So it is awesome that we're here. I struggled to frame out my introduction because two things. I knew a lot of you here would know me, and you would kind of know what my background is, and most of you potentially had read my bio, so I decided to take a little bit different approach. I wanted to tell you a few things that you might not know about Chris Langum. As far back as I can remember, I have always wanted to be a firefighter. My mother will tell you that when I was 2 years old, the only thing I asked for Christmas was a fire truck. I still have that fire truck, by the way. It was a hook and ladder, and just possibly a little hint there, Mr. City Manager, if I'm chosen, what I might be asking for Christmas in the future. So, and my Uncle Steve had a huge influence on my childhood. He had a career here in the Winston-Salem Fire Department, and he began his career in 1970. And as a young kid, he used to take me around to the fire department and to see different things. So I stand here in front of you as a blessed man that I've achieved two of my childhood dreams. You know, I wanted to be a firefighter, and as I learned more about what that dream meant, I wanted to be a firefighter here in Winston-Salem. Something else that you may not know about me, most of my career I really did not have an aspiration to be a chief or the chief, for that matter. I really am a grunt at heart. I love putting on the gear. I love putting on that air pack. And I probably will never lose that feeling that we get when we get to do our job as firefighters. But I had a pretty distinct career-defining moment that really made me take a step back and take a look at what's going on in the department. And it made me realize that I wanted to be sitting at that table with the chiefs. I wanted to be able to ask those questions. Hey, how does this affect the firefighters? How does this affect the job that we're doing? Are we making sure that we're giving our firefighters the tools that they need to be successful, to provide the service that we provide to the citizens of Winston-Salem? And that put me on a journey of, okay, how do I get at that table? And at the time, back in the early 2000s, you did not see a lot of chief officers with graduate degrees. So I basically looked at our city managers at the time and what did they have. And most of them had some form of a master's in public administration. I wanted to be able to sit at the table with them and know what their lingo is and talk their talk and to potentially ask for what we need as firefighters. And then I looked at what do chief officers have, what type of certification, and that led me to the Executive Fire Officer Program. And as many of you know, that's kind of the flagship for developing chief officers and giving them the tools that they need. So what that does, it allows me to sit at the table, and because I promise you that you, the firefighters, every day, you pour out your heart and soul for the city, and you do everything you can to provide the best service. So it should be our priority as leaders that we're putting our heart and soul into it, to making sure that you have what you need to be successful. I have experienced the best the city has to offer. Y'all turning that up on me? And what I mean by that, I grew up in a single mother household. I was able to, I stayed after school at several of the rec centers. Some of you old timers in the room may remember the Skyland Rec Center that's since been tore down. And then I stayed after at Rupert Bell Park, and Art Blevins was the rec director there, and he instilled in us kids, and he was an early mentor of how you take it to the next level, that everybody has greatness in them. And then to fast forward, in high school, I was able to participate in students in city government program, and that was sponsored by Councilmember Burke. And for a day, we got to be a city employee, and that further instilled that I wanted to be here at the city of Winston-Salem. So what's my vision? I think we do a good job with public education, thanks to Sabrina Stowe, and we have a lot of good programs like the smoke detector program. I'd like to see us ramp that up a little bit more and to become a champion of the city and let people know what we have to offer here in the city of Winston-Salem. And we need to reach out to different partners in the city and work hard on our recruiting and mentoring programs. I'd like to see us bring to Winston-Salem a model that's already proven out there and put certification programs in the high schools and pair that up with our already successful Explorer program and plant that seed early into our youth about what they can gain about being a Winston-Salem firefighter. And that will just be a continuation of what's already been set in motion from people like Councilmember Burke and Art Blevins, of what they instilled in me. You know, we need to reach out. Recruiting is tough for us to recruit females, as you know. Well, you can ask any firefighter that being a firefighter is a lot like being a professional athlete. It takes a lot of strength and endurance. And as I shared with the city managers in our interview process, I think we can reach out to our college athletic programs, reach out to those female athletics and touch base with them, tell them what a great place we have to work here, and potentially bring in those that are already athletes. It takes a lot of money and resources to do this thing we call the fire service. So I think we need to be very strategic and transparent about what our goals are. We've got to set 5, 10, and even 20-year goals of what we're trying to accomplish to provide our service. And with that, Councilmember Adam, she is very adamant about, she wants concrete data, and that's what those strategic plans are going to give for us. It's going to tell us where we're at and where we need to go. In closing, I'm very humble to stand here as one of your finalists. Stand here beside the likes of Chief Mayo, excuse me, it's very humbling to have even made it to this process, to this part of the process. And I do not take lightly what potentially lies ahead. I promise you that if chosen, as I feel like I already do, I will put my heart and soul into this department. And if chosen, the citizens will have no doubt that we are doing everything we can to provide the best service. And my hope is that the men and women of this department will know that we're doing everything we can to make this an exciting place to work, that we're doing everything we can to make sure that you have what you need to be successful. And if we do that, in the end, providing the service will take care of itself, because you're already doing it. You're already putting your heart and soul into it, and you need to know that we're giving you everything we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Now I'd like to introduce Trey Mayo. Trey Mayo started off as a fire captain in the Raleigh Fire Department, where he left as captain after a 10-year service in 2006. He then moved on to Carborough, where he became the deputy fire chief for approximately 4.5 years. And then he moved on to Rocky Mount, where he became the fire chief. Trey has, I'm going to sort of jump track here talking about his credentials and just tell you that you all know Chris, so I'll just add just a little something extra about Trey that maybe you all have already found out yourselves, because I know that how firefighters operate. When you have a sense of somebody who's a candidate for chief, you go out and you start doing your own research. And we've been doing our research as well, and we've been trying to find out anything we can about Trey Mayo. And we've talked to a number of folks, and I have yet to hear a negative comment. It'd be nice for me to live my life in a way that nobody could make a negative comment. In fact, I would be happy if they were just more positive than negatives, but I haven't heard a negative comment yet. But I will add one negative comment, which is he went to Carolina to get his undergraduate degree, but I guess maybe he was a little disoriented during that time. Trey got his degree in industrial relations from UNC. He also got his associate's fire protection technology degree at Wilson Tech. He's also graduated from the National Emergency Training Center, and then he got his life in order, and he got his master's degree at North Carolina State University. So he did learn something at UNC and get his life together. And then most recently, he went through senior fire office leadership at Wilson Technical Community College. So I introduced to you all Trey Mayo, and I'm sure you'll all be interested in finding out more about Chief Mayo.
Good morning. It's good to see everybody. This is exciting for me just as an opportunity, but what excites me, I think, most about this morning is the number of you who have come out on what for a lot of you would ordinarily be a day off. I think it's a cornerstone of a healthy organization when you have people who are dedicated enough to the organization to be engaged with that organization for what I call the extracurricular things. You're willing to come out and participate outside of when you have to be at work, and then when you go home, the minimal things you have to do to keep getting a paycheck. So it's encouraging to me to see the turnout that we have this morning. I just wanted to take this opportunity to share. You all know a lot more about Chris than you do about me because you work with him. So I just wanted to talk to you, and I didn't copy his notes, I promise, because there is some overlap. But I wanted to sort of share my vision with you and kind of give you a little bit of insight into how I think and how I lead. My vision for the Winston-Salem Fire Department, I'm committed to the fire service accreditation model of continuous improvement. So my vision is continuous improvement at a measured pace. And I add that measured pace part because we all know, if you just look down the road where you're sitting, that firefighters sometimes are a little bit intolerant of change. Yeah, do your head like this if you agree. Yeah. So the way I operate is So we don't, number one, we don't make change for the sake of making change. We make change because it's an improvement to the organization, either in safety, services, effectiveness, or efficiency, and in that order of priority. So what we will do is we will make an improvement, and then we let that improvement soak in and let everybody become accustomed to it before we heap on another improvement. But we want to give you an opportunity to have those improvements soak in and let you get adapted and get adjusted to them before we make another improvement. So that's why I say a continuous improvement at a measured pace. My expectation for you is to be engaged, and I've already talked about that, and I'm happy to see all of you come out this morning and show that engagement. And the other expectation I have is pretty simple. Just do your best. There are people who come into the fire service who have every intention of retiring as a firefighter in 30 years, and that is absolutely perfect. If that's what they want to do, I think it's wonderful. I don't push people into positions where they don't want to be. All I ask is, if you want to be a 30-year career firefighter, be committed to improving yourself and doing the things you need to do so that after 30 years, you are the absolute best firefighter that the U.S. Fire Service has ever seen. So just do your best. In terms of my leadership style, I use sort of a hybrid style. I manage by walking around. Don't be surprised if I show up on a medical call, or if I know you all are doing multi-company training. I'll show up from time to time as my schedule allows. I want to get to know you so that when I see you in Walmart on Saturday afternoon and you're in your civilian attire, I want to be able to call you by your first name. I spend a lot of time, as much time as I can, out from behind the desk, getting out and trying to understand you all and what you need to most effectively do your job. I can micromanage, but I absolutely despise it. I don't think I should have to. I feel like I have a pretty good track record of putting the right people in the right places and then getting out of their way. And I think if you manage that way and you have qualified people, then they're well trained and they have the tools they need to do their job, then I should be able to step out of the way and let them handle it. I make decisions based on data. I use a lot of teams and committees to get things accomplished. Winston-Salem is very much like Rocky Mount. We are administratively light, so you have to use people down in the rank structure to help you get things done. And I think in the end you get a better product and you get more buy-in by doing that. I make a pretty good effort at transparency. I like to say that I am practically transparent. Could we shuffle out more information? We probably could, but I'd need a press secretary, But we try to give everybody full access to as much information as is practical, no matter whether it's promotional procedures, just general information flow about what's going on in the department across the divisions. We make that information available to you without any filters. I'm a proponent of safety and accountability. If I am offered this position and we get all those details worked out, one of the first things that I have on my mind is satisfying myself that we are delivering an effective response force to emergency incidents. When you think about modern construction, when you think about modern furnishings, a lot of fire departments have recognized that they have not been delivering enough personnel to an emergency scene. So that'll be one of the first things that we will look at, and we'll draw on the lessons learned in Greensboro and in Asheville to make sure that we are putting that horsepower on the scene. I believe in purchasing and providing the best gear and equipment that we can afford, especially when it speaks to safety. I'm a promoter of community risk reduction, and I'm talking about things like public CPR instruction, public access to defibrillation. I noticed last night in my hotel the Baptist Hospital had a public access defibrillator in the hotel, and I think that's important to community health and assisting us in keeping our cardiac arrest save rate as high as possible. Aggressive smoke alarm canvassing, medication management programs. I think it's important that when we come to work every morning, we go about our day thinking about how our non-emergency service delivery leads to a reduction in demand on our emergency services. We should be putting services out in the public that makes Mr. and Ms. Smith less likely to need us on an emergency basis. I advocate for modernization practices, whether it be modern fire control tactics, use of social media, tablet computing. Currently in Rocky Mount, we are, not that what we do there is right or wrong, but we are in the middle of helping Scott Health and Safety fit Google Glass. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Google Glass, but we're trying to help them fit Google Glass into an SCBA face piece. So that's pretty cutting edge. And I take the Apple approach. I think it's more important to be correct than to be first, but I do like to be on the cutting edge in terms of modernization and technology. I've had a fair amount of success, and this is more important to some of you than it is to others, but I've had a relatively good success in my career as an administrator with diversity recruiting. Diversity leads to I think better decision making, broader perspectives, but in the end, I think we have an obligation to make the public feel as comfortable with our services as possible. And I think we need to maximize the opportunity for our customers to have somebody on our fire trucks with whom they have something in common, whether they went to the same college, they graduated from the same high school, they have the same skin color, they're from the same state, whatever that is. There's no doubt that having those diverse opinions and viewpoints and perspectives makes our service delivery better. And we just do that by making it a priority. You have to dedicate resources to it. You have to market properly. In what I have had success with in the past is with, I think Chris talked about an Explorer Post. We tried that without success, so now what we have is an Explorer Club at one of our high schools. We have a certification program at another high school. We've brokered relationships with community groups, boys and girls clubs, churches, etc., to reach out into different areas that we were not reaching into with our traditional marketing campaigns when we're recruiting new firefighters. And the last thing I'll share with you is, what excites me about Winston-Salem. I've been asked that several times, why Winston-Salem, why now? Winston-Salem presents a lot of opportunities for me and my family for, from a cultural perspective, from an educational perspective, medical facilities. My wife, I lived in the Triangle for about 20 years. My wife lived in Charlotte before she lived in Wake County, before we moved to Rocky Mount. So we recognize the opportunities that are presented on a broad scale by a city the size of Winston-Salem compared to one the size of Rocky Mount. We're about 60,000, 7 stations. I like baseball, and it's exciting to me to have the opportunity to move somewhere that has a minor league baseball team in town. But in the end, I think what excites me the most is it has become apparent to me that the Winston-Salem Fire Department has a lot of pent-up talent that is just kind of chomping at the bit to be released, and that's exciting. And I think no matter how well-run an organization is, I think not that I don't think Chris Lane, I think Chris Lane would be a great fire chief. I don't take anything away from him, but I think there's some benefit to having a fresh set of eyes, to asking questions and looking at things from a different perspective. Now, Chris he's going to hit the ground running faster than I. I have to spend time getting my arms around the organization, understanding where we are and how we got here and why. But I think there is a lot of advantage to looking at things just with a fresh set of eyes, no matter how well run an organization is. And I know there are challenges here, but those challenges present so many opportunities that excite me in so many ways. So this is, again, as I opened up, I just say this is very exciting for me. I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you this morning, and I thank you again for making the effort and coming out and spending this time with us this morning.
I'm an academic type, and so if I arrive on time for something, I feel like it's a moment for celebration. But of course, when we ran our assessment center, both of these folks in the fire service, of course, they were there way before the starting time of the process. And so when I walked in the door to the assessment center, they were already interacting with the two of them along with a third candidate. And you would have thought they'd known each other for 20 years. So it just speaks to the kind of people that both these gentlemen are, that they can connect under such a stressful circumstance, engage, and obviously establish a very nice chemistry right off the bat. So, and I can tell they both really enjoy one another's company already. So who will ask the first question? Come on up to the microphone and break the ice. Let's go. Who wants to ask? Yes, sir. Come on up. If you would, please introduce yourself and ask us your question.
Yes, my name is Rodney Cooper, fire inspector with the city of Winston. After reading a book entitled How to Make Friends and Influence People, we learned that there are two ways to motivate people, and that's through fear and desire. I'd like to hear from the two on what you would do to keep the desire for those fresh out of rookie school, kind of sustain the desire for those that are midway through their career, and maybe bring back the desire for some of those that are at the end of their career. I'd like to hear how each would bring the desire so that you could get what you want out of the department.
Great question. Okay, who'd like to start? Trey, why don't you go ahead? Why don't you start?
Thank you. I think that's a good question, and I'll be honest with you, I think probably 70% of motivation is intrinsic. I think people either have it built in them or they're less likely to have it built in them. But you have to tap that motivation, and I don't think fear is a way to do it. I think the way to do it is to enrich people's jobs, to make them feel like they have ownership of something, to give them responsibility. As I said earlier, to put the right person in the right place, and then get out of their way. Let them take ownership of it. Let them handle it, and come out with a product. So that's sort of the approach I take. Is identifying ways that we can enrich people's jobs and make coming to work exciting. And give them the opportunity, let them have buy-in, let them take ownership of whatever project, process, policy review. I told you I'm committed to the accreditation model. We cannot, that will not be done at an administrative level. That has to be pushed down through the rank structure, and the very newest firefighter, the very oldest firefighter, the most tenured firefighter, they're all going to have part in that process. And I think when you do that, it gets everybody excited about whatever it is you're working on, just getting the involvement and getting the dedication, giving the opportunity to participate.
Chief Mayo and I, we participated in something very similar to this last night, and we quickly found that a lot of our answers are very similar, and it was kind of dependent on who got to go first that kind of got the ball rolling. And so obviously, I think it would serve as a testament to those that know me. Obviously, fear is not an option that I view as how to motivate people. I think that you have to instill and inspire a sense of ownership in the organization. One of the highlights of my career is teaching in the fire officer program. And I recently was able to teach a set of tenured captains. And I'll be honest, I was kind of, a little skeptical about how it was going to go. A lot of 20-plus year captains that were being told, hey, you're going to get this fire officer certification. And what we really strive to do is to bring it back to the center. Why do we do what we do? How do we get excited about coming to work and providing the services that we need to do? There's a lot of morale techniques and things that I think we can put in place that makes people excited about what they do. Career development and professional development, making sure that we're on the cutting edge and giving you the tools that you need. And again, that's going to remind you of what we need to do and create a culture of safety. If you know that the whole department has a mindset of caring about your safety, and everything we do is making sure that you go home the next morning, that's going to instill a sense of pride and ownership, and continuously getting buy-in. He mentioned teams and committees. That's the only way, in my opinion, I feel like we can be successful going forward. We're going to have to create those teams and committees. And I shared with a group last night that no matter who the candidate is, I'm super excited, or who the choice is, rather, I'm super excited about what's to come for the Winston-Salem Fire Department. And that's going to require us raising our hand, hey, I want to help out with that. I want to help out with that community. I want to have some buy-in and some input. And I think that's what is going to energize the base, and those that sometimes may drag a little behind, they're going to start moving a little bit more towards that center and want to be a part.
Okay, who would like to ask the next question? Scotty, were you going to come ask me? Y'all are in trouble now. I just need to let you know that.
Good morning. Two-part question. I'm going to tell in my career here at the Winston-Salem Fire Department. And it's something that I talked to Dr. Strauss with when we met to discuss some of the things to look at candidates for the Winston-Salem Fire Department. How do you plan, and I very much believe in the accreditation process, how do you plan to rebuild the foundation of this fire department? You can't have a building without a good foundation. Our foundation has crumbled in the last 10 years. And you see that in the personnel. You see that in the reflection of tasks that we do. How do you plan on rebuilding the foundation? 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plans, some of your goals. The second part to the question is we spend an average of $50 per member here in our training budget. Our training budget is something like $15,000, maybe $20,000 for a department of over 300 people. It's the minimal amount I know of across the nation for a department our size. How do you plan on using programs that are out there from the Department of Justice, local community colleges, and colleges to upgrade our people so our firefighters, engineers, captains, and battalion chiefs are going to be successful in the next step in their career to one day replace you? Thank you.
Okay, sir. Chris, you want to go first this time?
There's actually several parts that I think that goes to that answer, Scotty. Simply saying that we're going to put programs in place, we're going to use the programs, and that's only a step on a piece of paper, if you will. We can develop the best programs out there, but if we don't have time to focus on the development and give our people time to do that, and so that falls into how do we create our time. I will put our workload, and I've said this in a public forum in many cases, I will put the workload of our engine and ladder companies and even our prevention personnel against anybody in this state. We do more than anybody in this state on a day-to-day basis. So we have to kind of create some avenues to lessen that non-suppression workload, if you will. And we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I wholeheartedly believe in the accreditation model as well, but that's something that is a process. We're not going to be able to snap our fingers and get the ball rolling on that, and we have to put the staff in place. That in every model that you see throughout the state that is accredited, they had to dedicate a staff to that because it's so time consuming. And then what that does, that gives you a model to follow. There is a lot of great programs. You mentioned the Department of Justice that's out there, the National Fire Academy, and there's a lot of things that we can bring that's free. Neither one of us is going to be able to walk in there day one and tell the city manager, hey, we need 25 people and we need to increase our training budget by $200,000. So we've got to be creative bringing those programs in, and we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Earlier this week, I went and spent some time with the chief of Durham. I've become good friends with Chief Curry of Durham, and it's amazing the parallel of our two cities. They were public safety, and they went away from that in '85. We went away from it in '87. And it's amazing some of the holes that they've had to dig out of because it was a public safety program in place. They do have a training division, but they found that they were spending all of their time in their training division of simply training the new recruits. They weren't providing the development opportunities and developing those firefighters and captains and battalion chiefs. And so they restructured and took them off of an 8-to-5 position and put them on as shift captains, shift training captains. And they arrive up on fire scenes simply for nothing more than observation. And he said it was amazing. They started it in January, and by March, they were seeing 5 and 6 things that was happening on every fire scene that was potentially unsafe, that put the firefighters in danger, and they were identifying things that they needed to start putting into their training programs. And so it's been a good win for them. So there's a lot of things out there. This is a very sharing industry. I think we need to pop that bubble that's over Winston-Salem, and we need to reach out to Greensboro and Durham and Raleigh. And I've learned, the more research I've done, they're doing that. And there's training captains from Durham that's going to Greensboro and sharing their SCBA program that they're rolling out. And then the folks from Greensboro are sharing their firefighter survival program that are out there. Greensboro and Durham are participating in professional development programs, and they're having people members from the other department. But that requires us to make it available to you, give you the time to go and the funds that go behind that to go with it. So it's not, we do have to create it here in-house, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of great programs, and I think that goes back to an earlier answer where that's where we have to set that plan. Identify what goals that we want to achieve. You all help identify those goals that we want to achieve and start that strategic plan. So when I'm sitting in front of the manager and the council, they can see in 5-10 years what it's going to take to move us forward. We're not going to be able to snap and make it happen overnight, but we can start bringing those programs in the beginning.
Well, we know that there are funding deficiencies in the Winston-Salem Fire Department. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the benchmarking study that the School of Government does, but Winston-Salem touts itself as having the lowest per call cost of any major municipality in the state. Well, the way you do that is you have a small budget and high call volume. There's nothing magical about it. That's a very superficial analysis of a fire department's efficiency. Look at Cary. Relatively speaking, Cary doesn't have any call volume. Well, their per call cost is through the roof compared to a lot of municipalities. It's because they don't have any fire calls. They don't have any relative to other municipalities their size, they have a low call volume. So we know those deficiencies exist. It's the fire chief's job to put together justification packages to get the funding to address those deficiencies and make that sale to the city manager. And in terms of rebuilding the foundation of the Winston-Salem Fire Department, firefighters are by their very nature, they are doers. We need to unclip their leash, and you'd be surprised at how they will take care of reinforcing, rebuilding that foundation. And we have to take advantage of that synergy that's out there down in the rank structure, and take those suggestions. I did Not that what we do in Rocky Mount is right or wrong. And I couldn't do it here at the rate that I've done it in Rocky Mount because you all are about twice our size. But I met with every member of the Rocky Mount Fire Department one-on-one. And my plan here would be to do the same thing. I don't know that I would ever meet with everybody because of, retirements and other attrition and new people coming into the organization and the size of it. But I think that's been one of the most, no, I don't think. That has been one of the most rewarding parts of my career is to get the perspective from the people who are actually putting the product on the street and taking that input and turning it into something productive for the entire organization. It does a couple of things. It inspires people to keep funneling those suggestions up. It gets them motivated, and it makes the entire organization better because you're making those improvements that ultimately have a direct impact on the customer. So there's that about rebuilding the organization, kind of shoring up the foundation, if you will. And then in terms of the term I'm going to use, and if I'm off base, you shake your head and I'll back up. But what I thought I heard was, how are we going to support career development? Okay, so I got an affirmative nod. So we have to identify what deficiencies need to be addressed and then locate programs that can address those deficiencies. We have, I don't know how your partnership here is with your community college, but Rocky Mount lies in two counties. So we've been able to tap the resources from two community colleges and bring in special instruction, have leadership development programs delivered at no cost to the fire department aside from comp time for people to go. We try to deliver those programs on a sort of a flip-flop off-duty schedule. So there are ways to do it, but that does not say that I don't recognize the need for a more robust, continually standing training program within the Winston-Salem Fire Department. We just have to make that justification against competing needs. PD has needs, Public Works has needs, Fire has needs. We have to make that justification and sell our needs when there's a limited pot of money.
Who else would like to ask a question? Yes, ma'am.
Gentlemen, my name is Nancy Kelker. I'm your fire planning officer. Fire suppression is, by its nature, the largest amount of what we do in the fire department, but I would be interested to hear in what you see as the role of fire prevention for the department and the city of Winston-Salem.
Feedback, Trey.
As everybody in this room should know, the incidence of fires in this country and in the city of Winston-Salem have been on a gradual decline since the 60s or 70s. And it's not because of the 88% of our budget we spend every year in the operations division. It's because of codes and code enforcement. So I don't know what else to tell you other than I think code enforcement and inspections is a very key component to making the citizens of Winston-Salem safe. I mean, you look at where we do our inspections, all in commercial occupancies. We can't go in 1 and 2 family residential occupancies, okay? So we have that piece of data. Well, where do we have our fires? 80% of them are over here in the buildings that we don't ever go in. So how much more, what else do you need to think about to show, we do inspections over here and we don't have any fires. We don't do inspections over here and we do have fires. So, I mean, that's a pretty convincing argument to me of how important code enforcement is. So, I think the challenge for the Winston-Salem Fire Department is shedding some of that inspection load off of the operations division, because it is my understanding that it is taking away from things that are probably more critical from a from an operations perspective, training and doing things like that in the operations division. And it's my understanding that in some cases, you feel like you can't do much else because you have this huge inspection load in the operations division. And in truth, I think there is some benefit to doing some company level inspections, a dozen or two a year. But we know, and somebody who doesn't agree, you can raise your hand, we know that company level inspections, it's been proven, company level inspections are not as good as inspections that are done by somebody from the fire marshal's office. So in the end, the state of North Carolina says that the fire official has responsibility for enforcing the fire code, so that has to be done. We just have to work on a program to get more staffing in the fire marshal's office so that we can shed some of that load from the operations division so that they can focus on things that are more critical to service provision.
By nature, everything that we should do, we're a fire department, and we're supposed to be stopping fire. And how do we do that? The best way to do that is to prevent it. And it's hard sometimes to get that firefighter buy-in that loves pulling up and doing their job. It's kind of like those that are in the military that train to go to war, but truth be told, they don't necessarily want to go to war. And the same thing should be our thought process. We need to train and be ready for whatever happens, but the whole thread that's woven throughout our whole department should be that we want to prevent that fire. And I think we already have some good programs that are in place. Earlier this year, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I may be wrong on the statistic, but we had 4 fatalities, and they didn't have working smoke detectors in the home. We're in 2014, and what a needless loss of life of something that potentially could have been prevented. We are doing a good program of partnering with other agencies and rolling out a smoke detector program. I recently, with Engine 19, when you put that feeling or that tag, if you will, into the firefighters, and you give those captains and officers of that apparatus the feeling to always be prevention minded and tell them that, hey, it's okay to take that extra step when you see it. And we recently had a gentleman flag us down after we were leaving another fire and ask how could he get his smoke detector checked. Well, we jumped right in there. We went in his house, and we not only did we change every battery and every smoke detector in that house, we ended up changing the air filter, and we changed the water filter. And it's the first time I've ever been on my knees changing a water filter as a firefighter. But if you get that thread of there needs to be prevention throughout the department and keep working on programs. And just like that, there's a lot of national programs that are out there. Risk Watch is a program that's out there. And buy into those prevention programs. We're already partnering with Meals on Wheels, getting in these homes. And a lot of times those are the elderly, the shut-in, that might not necessarily think about that smoke detector program. We start a campaign, and we need to get again, you're going to hear a lot of what we talk about today is going to talk about people and money, but we need to get more resources and more help to help Sabrina Stowe. Again, being a city this size, very rarely do you see one person that's charged with being the community educator. Usually it's a staff. So we're going to have to come up with some creative programs on the front end, and we're already doing, I feel like, a good job of prevention programs, getting out in the public, and kind of take it to steal a model from Chief Alan Brusini. A lot of him know him for his fire command and how we run our fire scene, but he was a champion in his city of changing the firefighter's mindset, and he simply came up with the phrase of be nice. What can we do for Miss Smith today? And when you filter that down and a fire officer feels like they have the backing, and they don't have to worry about the potential legal issues of helping Miss Smith with that smoke detector, or if Miss Smith, while you're on a medical call, we noticed that you've got this fan hooked up to a lightweight extension cord. Do you have another, some way to remove that? They even went so far to giving, I think they had a nonprofit that was partnered with the Phoenix Fire Department, and I know Clackamas County, Oregon, does that. They have a nonprofit organization that's kind of backed by the Firefighters Association, and they got a $100 limit that at any time they see something that they need to reach out and help that community, they're able to spend that $100 to do something, and more times than not, it's in the area of fire prevention. So I think the biggest thing is to keep that in our forefront.
Okay, anyone else have a question? Please come on up if you would. Here we go. Uh-oh, she's got 12 questions right
I
here.
got 15 questions for each of you. I'm just joking. Some of them have already been answered, so I have 2. Currently, we have 5 truck companies in the city of Winston-Salem. Each of these units are listed as a mutual aid company to any county fire department for high-angle rescue. Speaking from a truck company perspective that has no high-angle rescue equipment, how do you plan to equip trucks and the hazmat units, because they're included in no equipment, with proper equipment needed under the current budget restraints? We'll go with that one first.
Yeah, if you want to sit down and ask the others later, that's fine.
Just coming back. You're going to get this next time. Well, first thing I think we have to do is take a reality check of where are we at on that equipment. I'm a big proponent. I think at a minimum, every truck company should be equipped identical. Every truck company is charged with, somebody sent that fly in. Every truck company is charged with high angle, just like you said. So a firefighter who is assigned to truck 5 should be able to go work at truck 14, and they know exactly what equipment is there because we've made it a priority to make sure that they're identical. Like you said, the budget constraints, that's part of that strategic thing, but I think there are some things that are potentially going to creep to the top of the pile that will have to be a priority, and things that may possibly already be budgeted for that we don't necessarily need right now. Making sure that our truck companies have the equipment they need, that needs to be a priority. And to take that a step further, I think for the most part, as best we can, because not every engine is set up the same, but they also need to be equipped with the same identical equipment. And how do we achieve that? There's a lot of programs out there. I don't think we tap into even what our record management system offers, and it becomes a central database, if you will, and it helps us to keep track of things. As you know, ropes and things are going to have dates on them. They're going to be coming up, rolling off, so it kind of goes back to that planning thing of putting what we need in place and setting that up for the next 5-10 years so we don't end up in that bind of not having the right equipment. So I think when we come up, and again, that's something that you throw back out to you as a captain on that truck company. You know what you need, and that's what the fire chief and the staff is going to need to hear in order to make sure that we're meeting that.
So I guess I would want to know is why are we a high-angle resource when we can't provide that resource, which is, if I interpreted your question correctly. So, so I've answered a question with a question, and I don't expect you to have an answer for my question, but from my perspective, we're either in the high-angle business or we're not. We're either in the water rescue business or we're not. What we do, providing services, is too dangerous for us to go at it. I'm on camera, so I have to be diplomatic. We can't approach it from a halfway approach. when you think about the dangers of that, because firefighters are going to do something. If we have a high angle ladder company and we send them to a high angle call and they don't have the high angle equipment that they need to do to effect a rescue safely, I promise you they are not going to sit on the truck and look at the problem through the windshield. They are going to get out and they are going to do something. It is going to be unsafe. And that is unacceptable to me. So, what I would say to the city manager is, do you want us to be in this high angle business? And if he's shaking his head, I'm going to say, okay, well, this is what we need in terms of funding and training to be in the high angle business. And if he says, no, we're not going to be in the high angle business, then we surplus that equipment and we get out of the high angle business and we direct those resources to something else that we want to be good at. But we're not going to be halfway into something.
Good answer, good answer. All right, currently we have 342 employees, 10 of which are females in the suppression field. How do you plan on creating a workforce that is equally dynamic as the customers we serve? I know you touched a little bit on this, but what kind of plan do you have going forward with this?
Are you speaking specifically about females or just specifically about females? So as I said earlier, from my perspective, the key to diversity recruiting is making it a priority and directing resources to it, marketing it appropriately. And we have Salem College here. We have the athletic teams from Wake Forest, female athletic teams. We have female athletic teams at Winston-Salem State. I think when we look at it from a practical standpoint of how many females are really practically going to be in the fire service, I can't think of any municipality in the state that has a better shot at it than Winston-Salem does if we make it a priority and we dedicate the resources to it. The IWomen, are you an IWomen member? Yes. Okay, so have you read the white paper that they put out? And I think it's been a while since I read it, so if I'm off on my percentage, correct me, but I think they said that optimally, forever, about the most as a percentage of females we'll see in the fire service is about 17%. So, if we serve a population that's 51 or 52% female, I don't think we're being practical to think we're going to have 51 or 52% of our firefighters to be female. But 17% sounds like an achievable objective to me. We just have to be serious about it.
That's kind of something I led into in my introduction, and as I said, a lot of our answers are going to be very similar. We have to be very strategic, and I think we're missing an untapped, just amazingly valuable resource that we have in this city of all the colleges that we do have represented. And so we need to reach out to those colleges. And why is it? It's not that we're not reaching out to any female that we want. We're getting females that come through our promotional process. They're not passing our agility test. And so I think along with reaching out to those colleges and reaching out to the females who are already the athletes that it takes to do this job, we need to do a better education program on the front end, not just the females. We open it up to everybody, and we have some, I don't know, we'll come up with some tagline of kind of like a agility test days. Come out and find out what it is to complete the agility test, and almost have like a coaching / mentoring type program. And that would be targeted towards females. And because, especially if it's a female that's going after wanting a career in the fire service, odds are they're pretty strong-willed when they step up there on that drill ground. So if we tell them on the front end and show them what they're going to need ahead of time, months before they actually have that agility test and pass, I guarantee you they're going to come prepared on the day that they need to pass it in order to get into our hiring process.
Okay, this is my last one. We kind of touched base a little bit on this also, but a little more in depth would be great. Currently, we have certain required classes and degrees for promotions. Some of the classes are not offered on a constant schedule locally. Also, the required classes promotion leave the firefighters having to use their own vacation time and holiday time. This leads to people not getting the class nor being eligible for the promotion, or they have to pay for travel expenses. What is your outlook on this process? It's kind of two-parted. Also, what is your thought on college degrees which may have a higher level of training than the required class?
Obviously, I'm a big proponent of professional development. I'm a big proponent of certifications. And when you mention college classes, a big part of my associate's degree that I achieved in fire protection, we had classes in firehouses. A lot of times it was Midway Firehouse, Colonelsville Fire Department would offer classes there. And we had a dedicated group of people that we knew wanted to achieve this degree. And, you know, you mentioned talking about English class, or the classes that are there, one of them being like an English class, that type of thing. I think we can do better partnering with our community college. And that's a totally different side of the house than what we typically deal with. That's the curriculum side of the house. And as many of you know, for 5 years I was the program coordinator of the fire protection and emergency preparedness degrees at Forsyth Tech. So I know that if we reach out to them, that we can partner with them and bring them in. There's no reason why we couldn't have those type of classes, because it's guaranteed FTEs for them. It's a win-win. And you speak to, you know, having to take the vacation time and things of that nature. I think some of that will never go away when you're talking about all of the extracurricular. But I do agree we need to do a better job of putting our people in these training classes and providing the training and the funding for attending those classes. And I'm pretty passionate about that. 2 years of my time in the executive fire officer program, I had to take my own time off to, that's a 2-week program every year, that I was using a big chunk of my vacation time for something that obviously was potentially going to benefit me in the fire service. So I'm pretty passionate that if our people want that professional development, and there's no reason why we shouldn't stand behind them and support them and come up with creative ways of getting people in those classes.
I absolutely support career development. But we have to remember that, too, today there have to be a certain amount of people riding the fire truck. So we have to have a mechanism in place, and a lot of times it's with the ability to backfill positions if you have people who are away getting training, and that, you know, there's a funding piece tied to that. So we have to arrive at some reasonable place where we can make sure we have adequate people staffing the fire trucks. A slippery slope that we kind of skitter out onto with career development, that is when they are things that are required for promotion, is how do we make sure Billy and Susie both have equal opportunity to take that class, to get that certification, whatever it may be, if it's tied to a promotion, because we certainly don't want to have a career development program that is in any way discriminatory against a person or persons because somebody didn't have equal opportunity to get something that was required to sit for a promotion. So we have to put a mechanism in place to do that. And not that it's right or wrong. What we do in Rocky Mount is anything that is required for a promotion, the employee has to get that on their own. The other stuff, you know, we send people to Colorado for hazmat school. We send people to the National Fire Academy. all of those other things, those things that make you do your job better and they help this organization get better, we fund and support those to the maximum that we can within the budget limitations. And it's easy, when it's breathing equipment school, it's easy to say, okay, you two are going to go this time and you two go next year. When it's something that's required, when it's a TR certification that's required to test for engineer, and 4 people need it, and you can only afford to send 2, that gets to be a much more challenging decision to make. So, if we can arrive at a point where we can, I think the answer to the things that are tied to promotional eligibility, I think the answer to that, standing right here this morning, thinking off the top of my head, is robustness in the training division so that we can deliver that stuff as much in-house and on duty as we can. We have some ground to cover between here and there, as all of you know. And in regard to your question about college degrees, not that what we do is right or wrong, but what we do in Rocky Mount is if you have a college degree that is higher than what's required for you for your position, you get a monthly stipend for that. So does it, I guess if I was going to say, does it cover the cost of the degree? Well, I guess it eventually will. But at least there is some incentive and some recognition that our employees made the effort and had the ability to follow through to get that education. And we know that ultimately it lifts the entire organization when we have more educated personnel.
Does anyone else have a question? Yes, sir.
Darrell Hall. I have a question. We have currently five companies that are dual company, 4-man stations. How are you going to combat that and correct that?
Before you get too far, tell me about a dual company.
That would be like an engine company in Rescue 1, or an engine company in Hazmat 1, an engine company in Hazmat 2, engine company Decon 1, an engine company Rescue 2.
Okay, so you have a crew at a station with 2 pieces of apparatus. Okay. So I'm going to call that cross-staffing. In terms of decon and hazmat, I would have to do a data analysis. You know, standing here right now, I can't tell you that your hazmat call volume is high enough to warrant having a crew assigned to a hazmat truck every day. I'm not going to put you on the spot with how many hazmat calls you run. So I don't feel like I have enough information to answer that question. Now, I know that Winston-Salem is 132 square miles and you have a cross-staffed rescue company. Not that what we do is right or wrong, but in Rocky Mount we service 46 square miles. We have 2 staffed rescue companies. I don't consider them heavies because they're assigned with 3, but they only have 2 people on them most days. But if they had 2 additional people, they'd be considered heavies. They're equipped as a heavy. They just aren't staffed as a heavy. Well, the city manager sitting right here in the second row, I find that unacceptable that a city the size of Winston-Salem has a cross-staffed rescue company. I don't know how you would get by with a single staffed rescue company as large of a geographic area as we serve. But again, there'd have to be, so let me say this now. I think it's unacceptable that there's a cross-staffed rescue company. I don't know how many rescue companies are appropriate for the city of Winston-Salem because I don't know where you have I know you have some rescue equipment on ladder companies, and I don't know what your demand on rescue services is, but so that I would have to analyze deeper to be able to answer that question any further, but just so that I've said it 10 times before I sit down, I think your rescue company needs to be staffed with a full-time crew.
I think I heard some amens out there. Obviously, a lot of you know my position on that. I'm not a fan of especially Rescue 1 being cross-staffed. There's too much of a demand on service. There's too much of a demand on the need to be dedicated to those rescue disciplines. And as most of you know, I'm in favor of, there's no reason why Rescue 1 should not be rolling out on anytime there's a structure call that rolls out. Right now, they're simply on special call. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, it should not be the battalion chief's responsibility when he's got those spider webs in his head and he's looking at flames and everything going crazy, that he needs to remember, oh yeah, did I call for Rescue 1 or not? That needs to be something that's automatic, which obviously lends itself to, I think it should be a standalone company. The problem is we have a huge void there with Engine 7, and Engine 7 went away. It's mind-boggling that that was done before most of us was here. Some of the old-timers on the back row was here when that happened. That Engine 7 went away, and that's in our Buena Vista community. And just imagine the dollars that that engine was put there to protect, and it went away. And Chief Farmer, in trying to combat something that he was handed, is where he came up with the dual company concept, just to get a fire engine back in place. And I understand why he did it. Doesn't mean that I like it, and I don't agree that you've got a company like Rescue 1 being a dual with Engine 7 when you can obviously justify the importance of Engine 7 by itself. So 2 things there with the rescue company. He mentioned that he doesn't call his companies heavy because of there are times when they're only running 2. Well, see, I throw that on ours as well. We have a rescue company that does have, just like our ladder companies, we are the primary resource, or the majority of the technical rescue for this entire county. And the county units are going to call us and expect us to pull up on the scene with a number of people to adequately take it, just like the citizens in Winston-Salem expect to call us, and we pull up and have the adequate personnel and the training to take care of it. So Rescue 1, as quick as money and resources allow, needs to become a minimum of a 4-man company at all times, just like Truck 18. We've got 5 ladder trucks in the city, and the majority of them have 5 people assigned, and so they ride with a minimum of 4. Truck 18, because they replaced Engine 7 years ago, and they were more looked at as an engine company, well, when they moved to the Robin Hood area, they kept that 4-man company, and they ride a minimum of 3. With all of the disciplines that we're expecting out of our truck crews, I think we need to push for that staffing level to come up to a minimum of 4 people as well. I've said a lot of that to, okay, what would my vision be about it? I would love to see Rescue 1 sitting in a station where it's not sitting there by itself. I think we need to do more cross-training with our engine and our truck companies and the rescue company, because as you know, any technical rescue, we can have the best trained 4 people that's out there, they're not going to be able to handle it alone. So if they were sitting in a station where you potentially had an engine and a ladder company, and when somebody takes off of that rescue, you automatically have somebody else on that crew that has those skills and ability and training to roll out there with it. So I would be a proponent. That's kind of how to address it. I kind of have to agree with Chief Mayo. I would love to see hazmat, a standalone hazmat rolling around. You know, it's kind of ironic. You think about the city of New York. They have 1 hazmat unit that's staffed. And so when you look at the size of us compared to the city of New York, I don't necessarily know that the call volume justifies that. But the same token, do we need to potentially look at where we place that hazmat unit and we get more people that are certified? Our manpower is the craziest we've seen in 20 years right now, and we're having a hard time keeping hazmat technicians on that apparatus every day. That's a huge problem. That's governed by OSHA. That's something that should be unacceptable. So we potentially need to look at, hey, just having a standalone dual company out here. Do we need to potentially look at moving a hazmat company where it's in a dual house with an engine company and a ladder company, and you get more resources that you can throw at the hazmat.
If anyone else has a question, we have time for one more. Anyone else have a question? Yes, ma'am.
Kelly Jernigan, captain with Engine 1. Being a female in the fire service, I am a very big proponent of equality, total equality, meaning that me as a female should be able to do everything any other male placed on my truck should be able to do. What is your ideas on that? And like, for example, our physical fitness test each year, it's gender specific, meaning females have a less stringent testing than the males do. What's your ideas on that, and how would you approach that without have it more equal, without being called out on gender bias or racial bias?
You're exactly right. If a person is on that apparatus, they need to be able to do the job that everybody else can do. We've seen Captain in Greensboro, and when he went down, it was the sheer strength and manpower of the people on that scene. There was nothing technical about it. It took 15 people to lift the stuff off that was literally killing him, and it saved his life. So there's no doubt that strength and agility plays a huge role in what we do. We can do everything right. We can put the best programs in place, and we still have one of the most dangerous jobs in this world. And everything right, we still kill firefighters. So we should never accept that our inability to do our job because we don't have the strength and endurance needed should never be accepted. So with that, I've been involved behind the scenes a little bit with our wellness program, and in a meeting that I was in with one of our city attorneys, he's a big proponent of, hey, maybe we need to look at our current program. There are a lot of great models that are out there that make the wellness program more job specific. Probably one of the biggest complaints that we have from firefighters, I'm not exactly 100% behind the complaint. A firefighter should be able to have cardiovascular and potentially run a mile and do 25 push-ups, but I do 100% agree that it needs to be more job specific. And then when our wellness evaluation every year is more job specific, that takes all that gender bias out of it. It's simply doing the job that we do, and we're evaluating those processes and things. CPAT is an example. I'm not a big fan of CPAT because if you buy in their program, you got to buy all their expensive equipment. Fire Police Selections Incorporated has a wonderful program that kind of fringes on a type of CPAT type program, but you use your in-house equipment that you've already got. And again, it's assessing your job performance. That's twofold. Are we giving you what you need for that wellness program? Are we putting something in the firehouse that every day that you're on shift? Right now we have a thing that we tell people we want you to work out for an hour. Are we giving the tools that you need? I see people out there shaking their head. So I'll let you answer that question for me. You're saying, no, we're not. So it has to be an internal wellness. Again, everything we've talked about is going to require money and potentially people. And so you have to prioritize. There's no way, again, so far I figured up we put it up to, I think, 102 people we need for the city manager. So it's not going to happen that we're going to be able to, well, that was kind of a joke. We're not going to be able to just go in there and say, hey, we need this, need this. So we got to be creative. I just recently started a workout program with one of my sons, the T25 program. Man, that is 25 minutes on a CD that will kick your butt. And so maybe we need to look at programs like that, of putting that in the station, and it helps build up that cardio endurance. And then the testing piece is more firefighter specific. And we have trainings throughout the year where you're assessing your level, and you as a captain, you're assessing your crew's level. So by the time we get to that testing piece, there's no doubt we're all ready to go.
So I think what I like better than having a male and female performance level is setting the agility test performance at a level that is acceptable and making it pass-fail. You either completed the course satisfactorily or you didn't. What I have seen in the past is everybody ran the same course and they were ranked according to how they completed the agility test. Well, an 18-year-old male is almost always going to be better than a 32-year-old female when you're just ranking them in how they can run through that course. So what we've done is say, okay, what's an acceptable, and we've never hired any females. So I said, why? Well, they can't get through the test. Well, then I find out that the test, the score, what's an acceptable time on the test was set by running all the companies through. They were all male, and selecting what the average score was for all the companies. Well, you know how competitive firefighters are. They were killing themselves. I mean, if they were trying to get hired, they wouldn't have run that course like they ran it when they were competing against when Engine 3 was competing against Engine 7. So they had these really artificially, what I thought were low scores. So we made this, we got the scores to what we thought was reasonable, and it's pass-fail. You either do it or you don't. And then, so I have two concerns related to your question about gender equality at the fire station. Is if we're going to be serious about recruiting females, we have to be structurally serious about it. Do we have female bathrooms? Do we have female shower facilities? Do we have female locker rooms? Do we have sufficient privacy in the bunk rooms for males and females to be sleeping in the same room together? So it's hard to say, yeah, we want more females in the fire service when you come in and you've got to flip a sign on the doors to whether there's a male or a female in the bathroom, or you've got to lock the shower facilities while there's a female in or a male in the morning, and nobody else can use those facilities until that person, whatever gender they may be, comes out. The other concern I have is okay, so we've gotten these people, whatever their gender is, in the door. I am as opposed to having a reduced performance level for a female candidate coming into the fire department as I am opposed to the 18 or 19-year-old who comes in and blisters the agility course when they're in their late teens, early 20s, and they weigh 160 pounds, and 20 years later, now they weigh 260. They're more of a liability, probably, on the fire department than the female that we hire who is 3 or 4 seconds over on the hose drag. So I agree with Chris. I think what I heard him say, he didn't come out and say it, but I think what I interpreted was an annual like job ability test, physical ability test, different from the hiring test, but to make sure that after 20 years, are you still capable of being one of the 15 who go in and dig Captain Sudarth out from under the commercial roof structure that is collapsed on him. So I hope I've answered your question. I know I've kind of skittered around some of it, but I think I made my point about how I think we should treat male-female equality and in recruiting and testing, and what the acceptable level of performance is. Everybody should be able to perform at a minimum level, a minimum acceptable level. Male, female, 6 months in, 16 years in, everybody ought to be able to perform the role of a firefighter and not add to the safety risk that is already present on the fire ground.
You all have asked some wonderful questions, very thoughtful questions, very, very critical questions. And I want to thank you all for being here. And I also think the questions indicate how serious this department is about the next movement forward for the department, that this is a real critical juncture in the department and in the history of the department, and this will be an important time when some of you all have another 20 years in or so forth. You'll look back on what happens today as a very important juncture in the history of the Winston-Salem Fire Department. I'm confident that the city manager has two really outstanding candidates to choose from. I think that there's an abundance of riches here in this case, and I think that either way, the manager really can't go wrong in terms of hiring either one of these individuals to be the chief. I hope you all feel the same way. I also want to thank the managers for making this opportunity available. I think it's also really outstanding. We do our processes with many, many organizations. We've been doing this for about 25 years now. This is a rare opportunity in our work in North Carolina for the department to have an opportunity to look at the final candidates and engage with them and to assess those candidates. So hope all of you found this to be a worthwhile session. I'm excited about your future. Of course, I don't work every day in the department as you all do, but looking at it from the outside, I'm very enthused about what's going to be happening in this department moving forward. So thank you all very much for being here, and how about let's give a hand to the candidates for being here as well.